So lesson 10 has two topics. One is the switch statement and the other is the char or the character type. So the first one, the switch statement is kind of like a menu system, or it allows us to have a variable and then based on what that variable is, make a choice from a lot of options. So the first thing that I did was took this code and copied it into Eclipse in a new class called lesson 10. And I copied all that in there and I'm just going to run it and let's see what happens. If we look at the console, it says make your selection from the choices below. I'm going to choose 3 for multiplication. It says first operand. So those are the numbers that I want it to multiply. Let's try a 4 and a 6. And it says 4.0 times 6.0 equals 24. So it knew, first of all, that choice 3 was multiplication, and then it knew how to multiply. So let's take a look at this switch and case things. The beginning of the program is just the menu system. It's just printing out onto the screen what do I want it to do. And then I create my KB reader scanner and I have int choice equals the next int. So the user is going to type in a number and then based on what I chose, it's going to do something different. So once I choose a number, then it says to enter the first operand and then the second operand. And it's going to read those two numbers in as doubles. And then it says switch choice followed by a curly brace. So when you do a switch inside the parentheses, you tell it what the variable is that you're going to use to make that switch. And then if that equals 1, it will do the things inside case 1, stopping when it gets to break. If I typed in a 2, it would have said choice equals 2, and it would have skipped down to this group. Um, it would have printed, the words, the number, the minus, the number, and then it would have actually done the subtraction. Um, and so for each one of these, it would have done exactly what I told it to do. Had I done something like some different number, like 7, it will still ask for my first operand. I could put in like a 2 and a 4, and then it says, hey, enter only 1, 2, 3, or 4 because it didn't know how to do that. And that's because I have this set up as a default case. So if it doesn't match one of the cases above it, the last thing is the default, and it will do whatever it was told to do. So that's a switch. And it's switching on choice is the way that they say it. So it's switching on choice, and the cases are the variables, or the values that the variable choice could have. So let's take a closer look at what's going on inside the switch here. One of the things is this word break. What's that doing for us? So to find out, let's comment out the breaks and see what the program does if we run it that way. So all the breaks are gone, and I'll run it again with those same numbers before. I'll do 3 for my choice, and 4 and 6. And it says 4 times 6 is 24. 4 divided by 6 is 0.6 repeating. And then, hey dummy, enter only 1, 2, 3, or 4. Basically, it does all of the cases that it can find after the one that I chose. So I chose case 3. It printed the multiplication. And then since there's no break, it does the rest of the cases until the end of the curly brace. So that break is going to help us where we want it to stop and not do the rest of the options. So let's put that back the way that it was, put those breaks back in, and let's take a look at the next option in there, which is switching on a character or a letter or a symbol instead of having to use a number. So there's a couple different types we can use. We can use integers to switch. We can also use characters, which are this new thing. And characters are going to let us create a character or a letter and store just that one letter. This is a new data type we haven't used before. It's set apart when you're saying what it is with a single quote on either side, just like a string is set apart with double quotes to tell where it starts and stops. A character has a single quote. And that'll also help us if we have variables that are one letter. We'll make sure that with the single quotes, it knows that we mean the character that's inside the single quotes, not the character that might be stored in a different variable. So let's set up our program using characters, char instead. So first of all, it'd be really nice if I could just say char choice equals and maybe change this to next. No, that doesn't work. Next char, that doesn't work either. You can't just have char go straight into be read from the character. You have to start out with a string. So string choice equals kbreader.next, and then we have to create a char. So char, and I'm going to use ch, uh, char ch equals choice dot char at, and then 0 with the semicolon. So remember when we look at strings, the indexes, the index of the very first letter is index number 0. So char at 0 is going to take whatever the first character is that we type and store it in ch. And I should probably change these to say A, B, not A, B. How about A, S, M, and D? And then we will switch on, this time we're going to switch on CH. So we'll switch on CH and we'll have case A, case B, and we need to put a single quote around it so it knows that those are characters. Case C and case D. And if we give this a run, this time I'm going to choose M. My operands, again, I'll do 4 and 6. And it says, hey dummy, enter only 1, 2, 3, or 4. So why didn't it work? It didn't work because I made my cases wrong. So I'm going to set this up as case A, case S, case M, and case D. And I'll run it. And I'll choose M for multiplication and put in those same numbers as before, and it says 4 times 6 equals 24.0. But what if I had put a lowercase m instead? Would it have worked? Let's give it a try. I'll choose m, and it asks for my operands, and it says enter, well, it gave me the error message. I forgot to change my error message, but that's not what the real problem was. Let's see. Let's change the error message, first of all. A, S, M, and D, so I don't forget that. But the cases I gave it were only capital letters. I gave it case A, but that's capital A, and lowercase is a different letter. So what I can do case A colon also. And because there's no break, if it does a capital A or a lowercase a, it will do what's in here until it sees the break. I can do that for each one of them. Case M. And I'll run it now. M, let's see if I put in my 4 and my 6, it knows to multiply with the lowercase. If I try it again with a capital letter, it works both ways. So this is what you do. There's another thing you could have done. We could have done a string method to change everything into 2 lowercase or 2 uppercase and tricked it that way. Or we could set up these separate characters so that it would take either one, and that'll work out just fine. Now we can also switch on strings, although if we start switching on strings, we're going to add in a little bit more complexity because we're going to have to make sure we worry about spelling correctly and capitals and lower cases and those kinds of things. So switching on strings is something that they've added into Java with some of the more recent versions. And that's what your project's going to do. So in your project, you're going to take that same code, except you change it so that they have to type in add, subtract, multiply, and divide.